Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
Hello, I'm Renee Baribeau, and we're talking about one of my most favoritist, I'd love to make up words in case you hadn't noticed, topics about sacred reciprocity. And it's a great topic because I just remember when many years ago when I was trying to do some healing and I was in this it was a 12-step program. And the woman at the front of the room said the only reason she was taking us through these steps in this fashion was so that we could be of use for other people. And at the time I was thinking to myself, all I want to do is get out of pain. I don't really care about helping anyone else. It was just like I was mired in my own misery. And so through that process, I started to really understand what giving back meant. And so this is one of my favorite topics, and I know Sandra has a lot to offer on this as well.
Yeah, when I wrote Medicine for the Earth, I found in some resource that I was reading the Salish Indians in the Pacific Northwest have this beautiful saying. They have a word called skelatitude. And basically, what skelatitude means is when there's harmony between people and nature, then there's beauty and magic everywhere. And
Mm.
that really, I love that quote. And it's a very powerful teaching because where the beauty and magic is born from is out of sacred reciprocity. When we take everything for granted, which is it's part of modern day life, is people take a lot. Uh, you know, they don't think about how things would be better if we've changed our attitude and we change our way of approaching nature and how we approach life. And so giving thanks is such a powerful way to create change. It's a very powerful way to create change.
Absolutely. What is that native saying that if there was only one prayer that you had today, let it be thank you? And and what does that mean? How do we come and it's like, are we giving lip service to our thanks? It's like, saying you're sorry when you're not going to amend your behavior. It's kind of wasted time. And so in the Caro tradition, in the farming communities, the idea of sacred reciprocity is that today for me, tomorrow for you. So everybody comes over today to help me harvest my potatoes, and then tomorrow we all go over to your field and help you harvest your potatoes. And in I know for me in my Facebook group, the Wind Clan, one of the things that is going on that is really showing me that there's really sacred reciprocity going on is that there's these free check-in groups that I don't even show up for. Once in a while I'll drop it and then I disrupt the whole thing. But but every week they rotate it around who's going to run it. They get their Zoom meeting and everyone gets on and they have an opportunity to share. And what it was, you start to feel like you're when you're running a group or a Facebook page that you're doing it all. You're doing it all. Well, to me, if the community's not giving back, there's no sacred buy-in. There's no give back. And I'm out of integrity. I'm out of alignment. It's all coming from the top down. And that just doesn't sustain itself over any cycle for very long.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And yeah, it's we just did a show on adaptation and how we can transform. And it's amazing how much the word thank you can transform too. Actually told this story on a past show. I've been repeating stories, but some of the old stories that I've shared go so great with, or plant seeds to think about, in certain topics. And I told a story in a past show about a Tibetan nun who was captured by the Chinese, and she spent a very long time in a Chinese prison, and she was tortured horribly. And after she got out of prison, she moved to Santa Fe. And some people were in a local bookstore, the Arc Bookstore, which those of you who live in Santa Fe know the Arc Bookstore well. And people were gathered around her because she was just this being of light. She was just beaming light all the time. And people asked her, after all you've been through, all that torture, how could you be such a light? There's only joy, there's no suffering coming out of you. And she said, what I did for my healing was I repeated the mantra all day long, over and over again. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. That's a big inspirational story of what the word thank you can do, and the healing that it can create in your own psyche and in your own body. And this Tibetan nun is an amazing role model. I don't know if I could step into that much gratitude with that much suffering, but if you do get into a place of suffering and you start saying the words thank you for what life has brought you so that you can grow and evolve, it would be interesting to just reflect on how your attitude changes. And when your attitude changes, everything changes.
Absolutely. I don't know, when you were talking about that, all I could think back to was the times of my greatest suffering, which was mostly self-induced. I never have been in that situation where I was being tortured. And again, I go back to that thing. It's like every experience counts. Every experience adds to the richness of this experience that's my life. And so I don't know if you told us that nun story before, because it's the first time I heard it.
Oh, okay. Maybe
that must have been one of your other shows.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful with you. And sometimes we have to repeat things even for ourselves to hear them. And we have to remember, especially as teachers, a lot of times what comes out of my mouth is something that I need to remember that I'm grateful for too. And so, how do you give back, and how do you receive? I think receiving is part of the sacred reciprocity as well. For me, a big part of my journey is learning how to receive back.
Absolutely. Yeah. I studied with a teacher, Angelise Arian, for a while. And she always said that the yes-no coin is two-sided. And every time you say yes to somebody else and no to yourself, she said, then you're out of balance, because we all know the phrase, that all spiritual teachers talk about. You cannot learn how to give. You're not giving if you don't know how to receive. You're just not giving, because it's all one cycle. And if you're only doing the giving part of the cycle, and you're leaving out the receiving part of the cycle, then you're not giving. You're not finishing. You're not completing the cycle. You're not completing your work. So reciprocity is all about completing the cycle and learning how to receive. And my God, you'd think that we were torturing people when we start to talk to people about the need to receive. It's such... We just grew up in a culture where we were told we don't deserve, just do what you're supposed to do, don't ask for much, don't expect much, just try to get through life. And unless you can receive, you can't receive the goodness of life. You're just not going to manifest the goodness of life.
Yeah, I think that giving is an illusionary form of control that you have some kind of control over. But when you have to receive, it's more of a, put you more in a vulnerable spot, like that somebody else has something to give to you. And I know for me, learning to receive has been probably, I'm a giver. So learning to receive has been more, more work for me. It's like, okay, I deserve this. It's not going to lessen me if somebody else knows something I don't know. I mean, there's all of these levels of unwinding about, this idea that it's okay for me to receive, for sure.
Yeah, and I've been being forced into that role. And it's not an easy one for me because I've overgiven my whole entire life and don't even know the definition of receiving. But when I started to get health problems a few years ago, everybody who was working on me said, if you can't receive healing energies, if you can't receive help, how are you going to get better? And I have to say, it's been the most difficult challenge in my life is to learn how to receive and also to receive love for myself, because I tend to discount everything that I've done, and instead of looking at what's the goodness and what was the contribution I brought into the world, it's I didn't do enough, or what's the next thing, what should I be doing, instead of stopping and receiving gratitude for myself, for everything that I have done. And that's a big one, I think, for a lot of us too, is giving gratitude for ourselves.
Absolutely. And I'm the queen of that too. And I think that's one of the reasons that both Sandra and I love the Shaman Escape, is because neither of us want anything from the other one. We just kind of come together, have these conversations. We, sometimes we think we know where they're going, and then, out of the left winds comes this whole other idea. And so this idea of that, like, okay, I just do this part and she just does that part, almost without any conversation about, oh, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. It just is this giving and this receiving kind of undulating kind of free flow, which I don't know that I've really experienced that so much. So it must say that we're both in way better places in our life to giving and receiving. I'm going to take it as a healing.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Relationships can be healing when you take away the judgment, you take away the comparisons, and you just step fully into the field of energy between each other, and what comes back and forth, it contributes to us, and it contributes to the planet too.
Absolutely. And I don't even have to tell you like what a stringent boss I am of myself. When the book came out, like, well, all right, well, what's next? And it's just like, there was no wind left for anything to be next. It was like, stop, Renee, just stop, and receiving. I just recently pulled for the weekly wind spirit card, no wind, the doldrums. And that's an actual place on the planet. So if you start to look out in nature to see what's reflected back, what we give and what we receive, look to the wind, because this place of no wind is a place where there's no forward movement. It's just a place of no giving and no receiving. There's just, and that place is a good place to be too. So sometimes when you've given way too much, you have to just take it all back and stop and, see that there's just nothing going on, and then maybe get a little receiving. And it comes always from not where you put it out. Let's just get really clear. The places I put the most energy out into the world are not the places that feed me.
Mm.
Have you found that as well? Like,
Yeah.
It's a universal wind, but it comes back from somewhere else. And so the people that sometimes, like, I have a friend that I give and give and give to, and they give to somebody else the same way that I give to them. And when I get into my like snotty head about it, they're like, well, but I give to you. Why are you giving it to them? And but when I get into the universal flow of, oh yeah, it's coming back somewhere else, and my role with you is to give, and your role is to give it somewhere else, and really stop to the comparison and where is this giving and receiving coming from, but be grateful for the fact that there's wind blowing.
Right. Yeah. And for me, everything is about getting into the flow of life. Everything is about getting into the flow of life, because most of us have stepped out of the flow because we live an artificial life. And when we step into reciprocity, sacred reciprocity, that is fuel for flow, definitely fuel for flow, because that energy going back and forth, and the cycles, and it's all about movement, reciprocity. Reciprocity takes away the stagnant energy, and we're dealing with a lot of stagnant energy on the planet because we ignore that which we should be grateful for. And everything that's healthy on this planet is in constant movement. Everything that's healthy on this planet is in constant movement. And so when we can bring in reciprocity, we enter into the flow of life and we enter into that movement. And things happen, things change. And reciprocity is something so simple that we can all bring into our lives.
Right. Like, where can you give today? Just ask yourself, where could I give something, unexpected, or, going a little bit out of the way in order to show up? Last year, the 80-year-old neighbor was moving, and I just noticed what a hard time she was having. And, I went over and helped clean the garage one day. I mean, there wasn't any kind of I'm going to get for myself out of this. I just went over and, took a couple of bags over to her new place. And who knows where that comes back. Hopefully, this week somebody's up digging my mother's new water line. And she said, oh, they're just so, so nice to me. So maybe my giving out is being received over there. You just don't really know. But I'm grateful that somebody's helping her in Maine, and I help my next door neighbor here in California. And that's how it works. But we get into our little petty minds where I gave you blah, 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 and I didn't get nah, nah, nah. And I mean, if you think about your relationships, what are most of your fights about?
That's true. Yeah, I got gypped, or I'm a victim, or I didn't get what I deserved, or something. Yeah.
Whenever I think that I didn't get what I deserved, oh boy, I'm going to get wind slapped. Just look around, turn around, and the wind's going to, whoo. So
I hear you.
So this conversation can go on. I mean, we all know what it is. And Sandra has a little exercise for us about giving thanks to the elementals, I believe, because they're here helping us all the time too. Last week I did a meditation with this group, and I opened up a portal of timelessness as best. And so I was kind of wondering, am I way out of my realm here? What did I do? And so I called a friend who, talks to Metatron and sees those kinds of energies. And she said, oh, Renee, the other elementals are saying you're not giving them any of their attention. So maybe this is the reciprocity. I need to pay attention to the other elementals and not just the wind.
Well, for years on summits and in my writing, I've been talking about the same thing, and people have given me a bit of a hard time about my stance and saying my stance is not enough. But let me tell you what I've been sharing over the years is that right now on the planet, what we're seeing is the elements are giving us a wake-up call, asking us to pay attention to them, because we have water, which gives us life. Water carried us while we were in our mother's womb. Water escorted us out into the world. Air was the first living being that said hello to us when we took our first breath. It's the last living being we say goodbye to when we leave this great earth. The sun gives and gives and gives and never asks for anything in return. And the earth is our home and gives us so much beauty and gives us so much abundance of everything. And so what do we do in our culture? We dump toxins into the elements that give us life. I mean, it's amazing to think about it, that the water that we need to give us life, we throw as many chemicals in as we can possibly come up with, and the same with the air and the same with the earth. It's like, you know, it's incomprehensible. And so I feel that all the climactic disasters that we're experiencing today are the elements asking us to wake up to their sentient being and all that they're giving us so that we may thrive. We thrive on clean air, we thrive on clean water, we thrive on clean earth. There's no life without the sun. And so, do we give thanks to them? Do we give thanks to them? We take them for granted. We throw garbage into them. But what would happen, my theory, and I've been blasted by this for years, but I still hold true to it. What would happen if every day, every single person on the planet wakes up and gets out of bed, and from a heartfelt place, not just thanks, sun, for coming up again the other day, but from a heartfelt place, as the indigenous people have always done, going outside and giving thanks to the sun, or imagining in a meditation, giving thanks to the sun for the life that it brings to you. So imagine doing that right now. Thank you, sun. Think about it. Without the sun, if the sun goes away, what do you have? Give thanks to the sun for the life that it's bringing to you. Give thanks to the wind and the air for carrying you through this lifetime with every breath that you take, connecting to the wind. Give thanks to the waters for the purity and for the cleansing and how it feeds your soul. Close your eyes and give thanks to the earth for the abundance of beauty and for the abundance of food that you get. And what would happen if we all joined together on this planet and did this every day? I can tell you right now, through the principle of sacred reciprocity, the elements would give that reciprocity in return, and harmony would return to this earth so that magic and beauty would be everywhere. So thank you for doing that gratitude practice with me, and I encourage you to do it every day and hold the question of what changes in our inner, because it affects us too, and our outer environment, when we could be grateful for all that the elements give us so that we may thrive.
Oh, that one. That's just so simple and so profound, all in, you know, one wind breath. And just, I want to honor that and honor this work that we're doing together to bring people's awareness back to how simple it really is. You know?
Absolutely. It is simple. We are making everything so much more complex, and adding the word thank you to that which gives you life, which is yourself, the elements, and giving thanks to the people in your life and the events and the situations in your life. This will create the changes we're all seeking. But we're looking for the most complex ceremonies that are possible when the truth is so simple and it's right in front of our eyes. And the indigenous people have been passing down this information for thousands of years.
I love that. And speaking of some sacred reciprocity, if you like this show and you're receiving benefit from it, share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your community, share it in your groups, and join us over at the Shaman's Cave on Facebook and tell us today what you're thankful for. Let us know, share just a little piece of wisdom of what you find joy in, because maybe it'd be something that will spark something for somebody else. And what better is that to ignite somebody else's gratitude? And also find all of our past episodes over at shamanstv.com. And you can get access to both Sandra and our website. And also, another way you could show some sacred reciprocity is to order our books. I don't know if Sandra has any there. She's really been on to the medicine for the earth lately, but her new book, the Book of Ceremony, is also great, because that makes the world go around too, by supporting other people that you respond to and who, show up for you as well in your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. And thank you, everybody. And thank you for joining us in Sacred Reciprocity. And let's see what changes we can make in our own life and in the world just by adding really heartfelt gratitude.
And I'm grateful for all of you today.
Blessings.